All right, so that's what we did during class. I like that lesson plan. All right. Anybody else put it together? What do you think?
Okay, it's really long, but it's almost. This weekend, a language arts teacher at Virginia Beach High School was busy doodling and munching on Cheetos when the school principal walked into her classroom with a new kid named Ken.
Oh, I like that. All right, so cool. All right, anybody else put a story together?
This weekend's language arts teacher liked to play the tuba and build relationships with her students. When she moved to Virginia Beach, she felt like a new kid. Though she had students that ate Cheetos in class and might be really
Awesome. And pretty close. Anybody else? Okay, so this is a technique, this is a true story. So I'm not going to reveal the true story until a little bit into the program. But this is a strategy that I've used with kids in social studies class, right? Or you can do it with any subject that you have, but with social studies, so I would give them like all of the elements. I would give them, all right, Robert E. Lee, what's this grant, cannons, Gettysburg, and I'd give a date, and so that way, and then they built the story. They're like, oh, okay, I think these two guys don't like each other, and then they're going to use a cannon, and it's going to be this, that, right? So then they create their own story, which gets them hooked to find out what the real story is, all right? So it's kind of like giving them the notes, but it's called Story Builder. So that's the way you can do it. All right, so I'll tell you the real story in a little bit, but it's true. Okay, so talking about the R's for middle level education. All right, you do have a superpower, and you should acknowledge that. All right, you already know this. Yeah, you've been in my session. Has anyone not been in the session? Has anyone not been in my session? All right. Okay. All right. This is just some information you can know about CMLA and me, how to contact me. But I have also over here with my essential question and my enduring understandings. I have my contact information and my Twitter handle, so you can email me anytime. And like my other sessions, we won't get through every single slide, but that's okay because I'd rather have good dialogue and stuff like that than just sit and get it. Cool. But there you go. And register for our conference. It's a good one. 3,000 to 5,000 middle-level educators in one place. Dun, dun, dun. Imagine that. Okay, so this is who we are, and this is who I am. So this is who I was. I did that job. I did that job. Did that job, and then I was this person. All right, so that's me, and that was 6th grade, I believe. Maybe 7th grade. I don't know. Okay, so here's the real story. So this is a piece of paper, traditional piece of paper, correct? All right. So I was a 7th grade student. I was from a Marine Corps family, right? So we moved around every 2 or 3 years, and I counted it up recently, and I ended up from K to 12, I had gone to 11 schools, right, by the time I graduated. All right, and moved all over the world and stuff like that. And so I was always the new kid. I was always the awkward, maladjusted kid who couldn't fit in and stuff like that. But I went, so 7th grade, I landed in Virginia Beach, Virginia, at Lynn Haven Junior High School, the home of Bluefish. Sorry. And I played the tuba in the marching band, and in concert band too. And it was one of those things where, like, the band director, like, what they usually do is they line up all the mouthpieces, right? And they say, okay, try out each one, see where your embouchure is, right? He said, you go to the big one. Your lips can't do anything else but tuba. There. So I was a tuba player, and I was about yay high, yet this tall, and about yay wide. And I subsisted on a steady diet of Cheetos and Coca-Cola. And there you go. So, I never fit into like the Virginia Beach like surfer culture. Guess why. So all the kids were like, dude, man, Dru, why are you playing tuba in band? Why don't you come out and surf with us? Anyways, but I went to Miss Meekin's class. She was my 7th grade English language arts teacher, and she was a very rigorous teacher. So she had us like reciting poetry in front of the class, like memorizing it and reciting it and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not talking about like little haiku or like Fog by Carl Sandburg or anything like that, but like Edgar Allan Poe's Annabelle Lee, Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, all that kind of stuff. And she also made us, of course, do homework. So this was my piece of paper that I would turn in. I do all my homework, of course, on this part of the paper, right? On the main parts. But then I did some other stuff like in the margins. Okay? So this is how I kind of thought, this was kind of like my life at Lynn Haven Junior High. The main part of the paper is where most of the other kids were included and accepted. Right? If you think about how a school operates, right? like 80% of the kids feel like they fit in. Right? This is their, hey, this is our school, I know everybody and everything like that. But then where I was, as the new kid, I was over here in the margins. Y'all heard about that term, like marginalized students? That's really how it feels. You're over here in the margins. You don't quite fit into the piece of paper. There's this line that you kind of know that you don't fit in. And then guess what happens? You live your life over here, and then you have these little holes, little dropout holes. That's where I went sometimes. All right? So the dropout problems, I would go there. I would say, forget this. I'm not only going to live in the margins. I'm out of here. But I wouldn't check out with my feet, right? Because I couldn't leave school. I would check out right here. And that's where a lot of the dropout problem starts, is in middle school. They don't leave physically, but they might leave right here. And as a graduation coach, Sarah, you know, like some kids check out. So how do you prevent them from dropping out into those holes where they still live in the margins, but you know, it's okay. How do you get them to feel like it's okay? So what Miss Meekins did was something that was really cool. All right. So I would turn my homework in, and I would have all the homework there, but I would doodle over here. Right? Doodling got me through like junior high and high school. All right. So I turned into Miss Meekins. So that's how I felt as the new kid. That's where I doodled. And Miss Meekins, guess what she did? She doodled back. Right? So, man, it blew my mind. I could still see the first one. It was like this little guy wearing a sombrero and like leaning up against a tree. And it was because she was responding to something that I had drawn. And of course, it probably only took her like 3 to 5 minutes or whatever like that, if that. But that's why I'm talking about her today. You know, it's because of the relationship that she created with me through art, through that little tiny doodle. Not because she taught me about English or because of, you know, I became an English major, English teacher, and all that kind of stuff, but because of the relationship through doodling. So I bring that up because there are ways to connect with kids that are so simple and so easy that you can do every single day. So we're going to talk about like the R's. And I've been ruminating about these R's for a while. I started with like 5, and then it exploded to like 9. All right. So we'll see what happens with all of these. See, there's like 9. All right. So what we're going to do, and again, I'm big into gamifying it. So these are all hyperlinked to different slides. And we're going to roll the dice, and we'll talk about them that way. Is that cool? Rather than just go 2, 3, 4, 6. Yeah? All right. Well, I couldn't do number 1 because I'm using dice. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? I almost went with that though. I almost went with 1. I'm like, well, that's not going to work. All right, so we're going to go with number 4. So routines. Why are routines important in middle school? You all tell me.
Students need consistency.
Students need consistency. Okay, good. They thrive on patterns. So it's like Dr. Selby said today, the brain likes patterns. Kids like patterns. Okay, so consistency, patterns. Has anyone ever broken up a middle school fight? Between 2 boys? All right, across the cafeteria. I was just eating my chicken wings. I was on cafeteria duty, and I was standing over here, and I was just eating my chicken wings, and all of a sudden, right where you're about sitting over there, 2 boys were having at it. One kid had the other kid in a chokehold, and I had to drop my chicken wings, which was a tragedy, first of all. And then I booked it, just ran, over there. And what I found out was, and this is true, I think, of most middle school kids, they were so afraid of themselves. They wanted somebody to stop the fight. So that's where you see a lot of kids who are like, hey, they don't want to actually get into it. They want routine. They want someone to stop it. They want somebody before they lose control. That's what they're so scared about. So that's why they love routines. Anybody else? So consistency and patterns, anything else with routine before we jump to the stuff that I've written. Anything else? All right, y'all ready for it? Let's see what happens. All right, I'm big into disappearing boxes. All right. So I found this on Pinterest, y'all, so if you want to. Okay, so things that you need to ask yourself when you're setting up your classroom. These are what kids are going to ask too. So go ahead and think about them now. And I've given you the front of the words so you can kind of see what you think. Where will if be written every day?
Instructions.
Instructions or information. Where's it going to be written every day? All right, so that's why when I came in here this morning, and this made me awkward socially as a teacher, let's go ahead and say that now. Like, I got to school early, and I was in my classroom prepping it up. I was in here this morning, instead of eating breakfast, I was here arranging the desk and writing my instructions every day. I wasn't socializing with everybody. And at lunchtime, like I took a lot of time to just get other things set up for the next lesson. So there's going to be some time when you're like, man, I don't have time to like chit chat with everybody. I gotta get things going for my students. All right, so that's one of the things, making sure that everything is set. Date was always in the same place, agenda was always in the same place, homework in the same place, essential questions, enduring understandings, all that kind of stuff. And what I try to do is have all the teachers on the team do the same thing. Because that way, kids wouldn't ask. Because if you don't have the date up there, guess what question you're going to get? What's the date? What time is it? What are we doing? Right? You know, what am I supposed to write in the agenda? My mom wants to know. All right, so if you have this up all the time, okay, that's what's important and in the same place. Where will PET be turned in every day? Papers. Okay, so I had color code system, and I described it the last session, so I won't go into it too much. But kids knew red folder, second period, third was blue, so just like they knew exactly where to put papers. If you don't have a specific place to turn in papers, it's going to be crazy town. You're going to have 25 kids coming up to you at all different times of the day. Hey, am I supposed to give you this? Okay, so what do students need to do or act during quizzes? Tests and quizzes. During transitions, etc. Excellent. If you don't spell this out, okay, at the beginning of the year, then you're going to have issues. So what you need to do is say, listen, when we're having a test or a quiz, this is what we expect. Not what I expect, this is how we expect. Because listen, you can be done with your test like that, but other kids are still working in the room. So this is how we're going to act. And of course, you do this not only to build consistency in your classroom and routine for every day, but of course, what happens in the springtime? What kind of test? The standard, the CRCT, right? Or the park assessment, whatever it's going to be. All right? So kids have to know the routine of the classroom. All right? And during transitions too. Transitions to and from class, and then if you're doing movement in the classroom, all right? So I was big on kinesthetic movement in the classroom, getting kids up and moving, but we always set those norms at the beginning of the year, saying, listen, when we move during an activity, this is what it's going to look like. And I wouldn't just talk it out. I would say, all right, so here we are in the middle. We're going to start this routine. We're going to start moving. This is how it's going to look. And I get up and I pretend to be a student. All right? And when I would set up my classroom structure, I would make sure the desk gave plenty of space for movement and proximity to. All right. How will students, I don't even know what's behind there, react to their learning? Oh, summarize and react to their learning. Okay? So, tickets out the door. Right? Maybe you know tickets out the door. I always ran out of time for tickets out the door. I'd be in the middle of like, oh, it's going, or the kids are in the groups and doing stuff, and all of a sudden, all right, Eric, stop what you're doing, tickets out the door. It's like, oh man, that's not going to work. So what we developed instead was different tickets, and I can send you these too. We had tickets out the door, as usual. We had tickets in the door. So that was our warm-up activity. So you come in and you write down what we did yesterday. Let's see how much you retained from yesterday, how well you can summarize and react to that. And even more so, you know what? Sometimes, I would do this every time. Sometimes I'd say, all right, you go interview somebody in the class about what they knew from yesterday. So it would become like a social activity. Sometimes it was independent, tell me what you can remember from yesterday, and other times it was interview somebody else. And then we had tickets out the door, tickets in the door, and then tickets in the house. Like you're already here, right? You know those times in your class where the kids just look like they're glazed over and nothing's happening? Let's say, all right, ticket in the house. Tell me what we've learned so far and what you think we're going to learn next. And then what happened was when I did that, kids not only started to pay attention more about what we were doing, but then they'd also say, oh, I know what's going to happen next. They'd start using the agenda, that environmental text that I put up on the board. So this became a purposeful thing for a class activity, not just something to write down in the agenda. All right, so tickets in the door, tickets in the house, tickets out the door. We used haiku. All right, so when kids, haiku is not just summarizing. That's synthesis, evaluation, creation, all that higher order stuff. So we did that as well. But you got to think about, okay, how are kids going to summarize and react to their learning? All right, what fun, Rick, will galvanize the class? rituals. All right, so mottos, songs, activities, jokes, dances, that stuff that Monty was doing this morning isn't just fun, goofy stuff. That's stuff that really gets kids jazzed about coming to your class. If kids had to buy a ticket to your class, would your class be empty? You know, so that's the thing to ask yourself. We always, my 8th period class, and I always felt bad that it wasn't with other classes, but my 8th period class, we did silent ball. Very simple, a little soft little ball, and it was still a quiet activity. We make a big circle around the classroom. Of course, we set the norm and say you're not going to beat somebody with it, but you have to be quiet the whole time. And we would just to kind of ease the tension after a whole long week of work, we would do that on Friday. All right. So, any other things with routines that you can think of? With why kids? What kind of questions you need to ask about routines? You ready to go into another R? Yeah? I appreciate you containing your excitement. I know it's hard sometimes. All right, so in my little home start, let's see if it works. All right. Okay, so we did routines, so we can cross off number 4. Okay, let's see. 7. Oh, relationships. All right, this whole thing's got it. All right, so let's see. Okay, so how will you our students that you care about them in their lives rests? Show and interests. Let's see if you got it. Show, excellent. How are you going to show students that you care about their interests? All right, and a lot of that can just be like what Monty was saying earlier. Hey, tell me more about this. Like, why are you wearing that? Like, what's that about? Okay, or just what music you guys listen to. All right, anything like that. And of course, at the beginning of the year, you will do, most likely, like some sort of an icebreaker activity, or a student interest survey, or a motivational survey, which will be able to find out exactly what's going to motivate them to do work in their classroom. But then you need to follow up with that kind of stuff and use it. If you find out that you've got a lot of boys that like tennis, let's say, in your class, do you have magazines about tennis? Do you have any reading materials about tennis? Now you have something that you can build like word problems on in math around tennis. All right? How will you help students see the connections and relationships between int areas? Connections between the content areas. All right, so they want to be connected to you, right? That's one big thing. That's the relationship there. In terms of curriculum, how are you going to build the relationships between content areas? And that's where meeting up with another teacher in another content area is key during common planning time or any other time and say, listen, hey, I'm studying the Civil War right now in social studies, Georgia history, right? And I want to teach them about like casualties and injuries and all that kind of stuff. And I know you're doing graphing and math. Is there a way that you guys can include mine? Can we do like a code type of thing where I can use a graph in social studies to show that? Okay, we can do so. There are ways to get connected. You know, you have your science teacher talk about, or the English language arts. I want to use that expression, biting the bullet. Because that's how that started in the Civil War, where they amputated guys' legs and they had to actually bite a bullet to keep them from screaming. Is there a way that you could incorporate like that kind of science in your science lesson too, so we can have like a whole connection with that? Okay, you're still meeting the Common Core standards. You're still meeting whatever standards you're trying to meet, but you're trying to connect them all. So kids will be like, oh man, that's why we're talking about that in our class, because in that class over there we did. So I'm telling you, kids will start lighting up. All right, how will you help students navigate peer relationships? Peer relationships. They're going to bring that kind of stuff into your classroom. And it can happen right out in the hallway. Something happened at the lockers. Oh, Mr. Tom, you can just see it on their face. You're not going to reach them through any kind of content. You've got to get to that person first. You've got to get to that kid and what's in their heart right now. All right, so how are you going to help them navigate peer relationships? All right. How will you maintain relationships through the year through, okay, now this is where you don't have to guess at all of these. All right, maintaining relationships. All right, so you've already started to build them at the beginning of the year. That's fine. That's wonderful. And I've seen teachers do a great job of that in August. But then something happens by October, November, there's like, the kids are still coming? All right, great. All right, but how are you going to maintain them throughout the year? Through, and relationships can either be fortified or eroded by these things. It all depends on how you, these are tools, it depends on how you use them. Through humor, all right, so just like Monty said, like sarcasm. Humor can be really cool with kids if you have the relationship to use it. All right, and if it doesn't tip into hurtful things and sarcasm and stuff like that, but humor can be really good. And making fun of yourself. All right, like for instance, nobody caught it, I don't think, but I intentionally made a mistake over here. And I would do that every once in a while. You see the mistake? Okay? So I would make a mistake like that, and they'd be like, oh, Mr. Tomlin, I see number 3. You got that wrong. I was like, oh my gosh, you guys were right. Thank you so much. Isn't that so funny? All right, so they begin to see that, oh, okay, Mr. Tomlin, he makes mistakes. That's all right. You know, and every once in a while, I'm going to make a mistake, and Tomlin's not going to judge me too harshly for that, because he knows we're all still learning. He makes mistakes. All right, so humor, authenticity, let's see, authenticity. All right, so the kids can sniff out you being fake. I hate to put it that bluntly, but like that's where you got to be. Ask them about their day, but don't ask it because it's on your checklist of something to do. You just want to know just because you're an interested person. Hey, how's it going, man? Or someone comes in and they're just in crisis and in, they're just ready to blow up. Instead of saying, you know what, I think you should go to the guidance counselor. I think you need to go see the administrator. Hey, what's going on? Something you need to step outside? What I used to do was, if a kid was in crisis, and they were just human at their desk, but they didn't really want to be called out in the middle of class, I would walk around and I'd say, okay, so it says, give me a thumbs up if you're okay. So I just walk around. I'd be right there. And she knew why I left her there. And then I'd turn around. And then that kid would either give me a thumbs up or give me a thumbs down. And I'd say, and I'd come over and do a little put up right thing. And I'd say, all right, thank you so much. Step outside. I'd say, all right, so you want to step outside real quick? Let me give you a little moment. Okay, just go to the water fountain, or you tell me where you're going to go, or you need to go see a guidance counselor to get some help. But it was a low-level way of building that relationship and that authenticity that I really cared. But I'm not calling the kid out and saying, what's wrong with you? You know, get with it. What's the problem? Okay? All right. Humor, authenticity. What's this one? Durability? Something. Oh, vulnerability. Vulnerability. All right. So that's part of kids want to know they can count on you, right? So you can't be vulnerable and say, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just so happy to be alive. But but you can share things about yourself, but not tip it over to the point where you're sharing excessively personal stuff. Don't ever do that, please. That just becomes weird. All right. But sharing things like make a mistake on purpose. Oh my gosh, I did that all the time. Every year I would tell about when I was teaching the writing process and about narratives. I would before I taught anything about pre-writing, first drafting, I would tell my jelly donut driving story. All right, which I'll share with you if you all remain good. But that was the way I got them hooked, right? So that's how it went. Strength, okay, because again, they want to be able to count on you. So if something goes wrong in class and you take a stand and you make it safe for the rest of the learners in your class, that'll help so much, all right? And accessibility. Now, accessibility can go, like I said, good or bad. You want to be there for kids. You want to show them that you're accessible before school, after school, during lunch, but you got to make sure they understand that you need your own time too. All right. I had a very awkward situation, 8th grade teacher, and at the end of the year, I had 3 girls come to me and say, Mr. Tomlin, we need your help. Our friend has an eating disorder. And I remember to this day, they were sitting on the desk, and there was nobody else in the room, me with 3 8th grade girls. Which, first of all, as a male teacher, you never put yourself in that position. Okay? So you all don't worry about that because you're males. But still, if you had 3 boys in the room, same thing. You don't ever want to do that. Okay? So they were like, yeah, well, we need some help with a friend who has an eating disorder. And I was like, all right, I've made myself too accessible and almost too vulnerable. I'm too much of an open source for them. It's awesome to build a relationship with a kid, but I need to turn that conversation over to a professional and say, listen, girls, thank you so much. It is a very serious situation, and this is where I think you all should go with it. I'm your English language arts teacher, and I'm glad you come to me, you trust me. Now let's figure out how we're going to deal with this. All right, so don't try to tackle an issue that could potentially ruin a relationship. See what I mean? All right. Okay. What time do we? 2:50, right? 2:50. All right. So okay. Very good. The home star. All right. So we've done routine and relationships, and now we're going to do 7. Oh, we just did that one. 5. Ooh, relevance. Okay. So why is relevance important to middle school?
To make connections
Make connections. Make connections to what?
to their personal life.
To themselves. Okay, like kids connecting to themselves. Is that what you mean? What are the kind of relevance?
They're starting to branch out and see other things in the world that aren't just their community. So like pulling things in that are relevant on a broader scale into
Okay.
themselves.
Cool, I love that perspective. So you're saying like not just making it about themselves, but actually getting them to see different perspectives.
Our kids are really hearing about things that are going on, like the Ebola.
Right,
They're starting to see those things and be interested.
right. And they want to solve it,
Yes.
right?
They have
So-
friends.
That's a huge thing too with middle school kids is in terms of their moral development, is they have these big, I want to solve this big global issue, I want to help, but they don't know how to harness it in. So how do we get kids, so a lot of service learning projects are out there that you can get kids involved in. That's a great point, making relevance beyond just their own communities. Anybody else? So relevant to themselves, relevant to things outside of themselves. How about for curriculum? Do you need to make that relevant? What do you say?
Student on the committee. Okay. But she was talking about how does curriculum and real life coincide? What makes it what we're teaching important to how it affects everyday life?
Right. Good, good. So, and that's part of that whole college and career readiness dialogue too. Is like, how do you make it relevant to their lives and what their future lives could potentially be? All right. So, let's see what kids might ask too. All right. Oh, I had no boxes this time. Oh, I got these instead. All right. So, again, how well do you know your students' lives and their interests and their routines? So, all right, one little story that I knew from a routine. So, as a 7th grade English language arts teacher, and I was new to middle school, so I wasn't really trained on the middle school concept that much. But we were on a team, and there was one day when we had a student who was really late to school, super late to school, and he normally wasn't late to school, he was Francisco, and so that was a routine that I knew. I was like, this kid's never late. What's going on with this? And so we run our team meeting. We had team planning like 3rd and 4th period. He still hadn't shown up. And then all of a sudden, in 3rd period, we were in our team meeting and we heard this movement outside in the hallway, and it sounded like a locker was opening. And so we went out there, and sure enough, Francisco was there. But by the time we got there, he was already down the hall on his way to his connections class, like art or music or PE or whatever. And so we were like, all right, well, gosh, should we go down to the office? Should we check out what's going on? And so we went down to the office to figure out, okay, what's going on with Francisco? Why was he late? And so the secretary was just like, well, he was just late to school. It's an excused absence. We're not sure what's going on. And so we said, you know what, let's go get Francisco from his art class. So we went and we got him. And on our way there, we passed by his locker and we heard a little noise. We heard it again. But we didn't have the authority to open up his locker. So we went and we got Francisco. And so we came back and we said, all right, Francisco, listen, first of all, why are you late? We're ready to fill out a disciplinary referral line for being this late. It's almost like skipping. If you miss certain periods of the day, you're skipping. That's a whole other thing. And he said, well, I got to open up my locker. And we're like, yeah, we're glad you did that because there's a noise coming from it. So he opened up the locker, and inside was his backpack. And he pulled it out, and in the front pocket of his backpack was a little bird. It was a live baby bird that he had carried all the way to school. I said, well, tell us what in the world? And he said, yeah, it's Mr. Tomlin. I was at the bus stop, and this little bird fell out of the nest and hit a rock, hit a rock, and it wouldn't move, but it was still alive. And the bus came, but I didn't want to leave it there, and so I missed the bus. And so I decided to take care of this bird, and I walked to school. It was like 5 miles. The kid walked 5 miles with a baby bird in his backpack. And anyways, we could have written him up. We could have punished him. But, it's so much about our knowing that this wasn't, it had to be something extreme for this to happen. All right, so that's a little tearjerker story about Francisco. There you go. All right. Other things, how can you connect your content area topics to your students' lives and or current events and issues? All right, so if you're studying, in math, you're talking about statistics, can you pull in the Ebola situation into that? Yeah, there's lots of statistics you can cover about that. All right, same thing with science. Okay, so with your students' lives and interests, same thing there. All right, how can you connect your current area topics to your students' lives? How are you going to make your content area relevant and connect to other content areas? And how can you use the arts in your class to build connections that way? All right, so is there music, is there art? And not just your music and your art, but your students' music and art too. At the beginning of the year, I used to have kids select 3 songs that they loved. Just 3. I wouldn't tell them why. Just 3 songs. But they had to be appropriate, right? This is a family environment in school. So just pick 3 songs that you love. And then what I would do is I would take all their songs and I would develop a playlist for the year with their songs. And I have music going, right? So I would start the class and I would just pick a song, one of their songs. And the kids would be like, oh, that's my song. And that would be how they started, oh man, right? And I would keep that going, right? So that was the way to keep that relationship going and build those connections. Or I would study like the lyrics of the song, and I would try to figure out, all right, I've got, the song here with these lyrics, how can I connect it to what I'm teaching? All right, so that's the way you can do it too. It's great that we are at this session, and I know you all read your professional journals and all that kind of good stuff, as you should, at Emily Magazine. Keep on reading. But also read your students' magazines and go on their websites. Have you ever done that? It's a scary place. So, go to the supermarket and don't spend a long time because security will get a little crazy on you if you spend a long time reading their teen magazine. But just kind of see what kind of images are out there, what kind of language is being used. There's a website that I visited once. I promise, only one. www.cosmogirl. Right? So, and it's like the Cosmopolitan magazine, but it's for girls, right? And they have a whole when back to school time starts. Check out that website. Sometimes it is good. It's about empowerment and stuff like that. Other times it's like, if Johnny's sitting next to you, what should you say? What should you do? And it's like, really? That's what we want girls to focus on when they're in our schools? It's about what to do when Johnny's sitting next to them? Anyway, all right. And Johnny's no good anyways. Should be that tuba player should be talking to. All right. And then how can students pursue their interests and goals in your class? A huge thing that's going on right now, I don't know how huge it is, I wish it was huger, was Genius Hour. Have you heard of Genius Hour? Oh. Just check it out. There's a hashtag on Twitter, Genius Hour. And then if you just type in Genius Hour on the interwebs, you'll find it that way too. But it's a time, and I think it's just a teacher revolution that's making this happen. Teachers are giving kids 1 hour. Some are doing it weekly, some are doing it daily, where kids can just explore any topic they want to. You've heard of that? All right, see what I'm talking about? Cool, yeah. And there's an article.
Like a TED Talk at the end of the year where they just, at the end, they presented anything that they wanted, that they researched the whole year. And it was amazing.
Yeah.
They got out there and they had to memorize and they did like it.
But it was because they were motivated to do it. Yeah. And
any topic, anything they were interested in.
so do you know how the teacher, because the teacher probably had to, schedule it very...
It was called a 20% project, where 20% of their week was spent on this project. So every Monday, that's what they worked on.
Cool.
And it was dedicated to that. And it was structured so that they had to research it, and we get articles, and we get pictures, and then when they presented it, they also talk about what they learned from the process, and who to thank as they go through it. So
That's awesome. There was a type of paper called an iSearch paper that we used to do instead of a research paper, it's called an iSearch paper. It's very much related to Genius Hour. So if you want to baby step your way into Genius Hour, iSearch papers are a really good way to introduce kids to research, but to make it personal, where they're and really motivates them that way too. All right. So relevance, making it relevant to their lives. Okay. So let's see. Relationships, what else have we done? Routines, relevance. That's it, just 3? Andrew, you're slow. 5. but it looks like 6. 6, right? That's what that is. All right. Nice game. All right, so remember this. All right, this one, all right, we've been through this for other sessions, but what were you like as a young adolescent? Okay, that's huge. All right, before you jump on a kid down his throat and say, why did you do that? Where's your pencil? Oh my gosh, why are you wearing that? Do you think that joke's funny? I can't believe you said it to that girl. Oh my gosh, why are you running down the hallway? Just before you ask any of those questions, just remember what you were like at that age, okay? What did you care about? What did you worry about? Go back. I know it's painful, but what did you care and worry about? What support? Oh, this is a big one. What support did you need, and what kind of did you get? Think about that. I remember in Dunhaven Junior High School, I cried in the cafeteria. I don't know why I was crying, but I was crying. And I was in 7th grade. And Coach Young came up to me and said, "What's wrong with you?" Thanks, Coach. Right? So, I needed a different kind of support, but I didn't get it. So, think about those times, the good stuff and the bad stuff. All right? What experiences kept you connected and afloat? Right? What, like that Miss Meekins moment, like what kind of kept you going? And then what experiences made you disconnect and sink? Because if you can answer these 2 questions about yourself, then you'll be able to support the kid in a better way. What were your strengths and challenges? What learning activities kept you engaged? And then who got you here as a teacher and why? Keep thinking about all those things. Keep on remembering. All right? So, there's that. There you go. All right, so let's see. Which one do you want to do? Response, rigor, rock stop, reflection? All right. Reflection is very close to remembrance. All right, so